Oh yeah, Splatoon 1 and 2. These games are legendary. They're some of Nintendo's most unique games and they're bursting full of creativity and personality. You're a kid now, you're a squid now, and now you can be an octopus. If you couldn't tell, I absolutely love this series, and that's all thanks to my girlfriend Claire for introducing me to the games. From the gameplay, characters, to the stories, the backstories, and the music, it's all amazing. But oh man, the music, it's so damn good at setting the mood it needs to set. From feelings of urgency, to feeling grand, to relaxation, to seriousness, it's all amazing. So of course I was going to cover an iceberg on it. But what is an iceberg analogy? I'll explain it for those of you who don't know or need a reminder. Topics that are pretty surface level and are more known sit near the top. The deeper down the iceberg you go, the more obscure, less known and undocumented the entries get. I chose this one by JG Ultra. It has a lot of interesting topics to cover, it's quite big and there's a lot to talk about. Pretty much everything Splatoon related is covered here, and it's beautiful. I even got a special kudos. Thank you, JG. Now, I'm going to do this one a little differently. Because of how big the iceberg is, I'm going to split it up into two videos. Layers 1 to 3 will be part 1, which is this video, and then layers 4 to 6 will be part 2. So are you ready? Let's take an in-depth dive into the Splatoon Iceberg. Callie and Marie aren't sisters, but cousins. Let's just drop this massive truth bomb right away. They are not sisters. They're cousins that have been branded as sisters. We know that they're a famous pop duo based in Inkopolis, but how did they get their duo name? Callie and Marie were born and grew up in Calamari County. After winning Inkopolis' first annual youth folk singing contest, they moved to Inkopolis where they became musicians and news announcers. It's also heavily implied that they are Agents 1 and 2 respectively, so heavily in fact that they are Agents 1 and 2. Just for some more context, they grew apart after the final Splatfest of Splatoon 1, which was Callie vs Marie. Marie won 3-0. That brings us to Splatoon 2, where Marie goes back to Calamari County to visit her parents with Callie, but Callie doesn't show up. That's also why we have the off-the-hook duo handling Inkopolis news. Pearl and Marina Ida took over from Callie and Marie. Squid Sisters is a stage name, you know? It has a nicer ring to it rather than Squid Cousins. Plus, sisters seem more marketable than cousins. But moving on from there, we have Octoling goggles/shades are mind control equipment. Octolings are a subspecies of the Octarians, and obviously, they're a lot different from each other. Octolings under Octarian control are always seen wearing these goggles in Splatoon 1, and these glasses in Splatoon 2. Mind control is something that does occur in Splatoon. During Splatoon 2's DJ Octavio fight, we can see that Callie is wearing shades similar to what the Octolings wear. When Marie snipes them off Callie, DJ Octavio outright calls them Hypno Shades, confirming that Octarians have mind control equipment. They do look a bit different to the normal Octoling shades, however I think that's just because Callie has a different uniform compared to theirs. So this isn't some outlandish theory, if anything it's heavily implied. It seems like the endgame would have been to eventually mind control Inklings using Callie and the glasses. So why switch from the goggles to the glasses? Fashion? A mind control upgrade? I mean, Calamari Inkantation was able to get Octolings who listened to the song to leave the Octarian army, and then they found refuge in Inkopolis, which is where we see them in Splatoon 2. Marina was one of these Octolings. Here's a photo of her at the DJ Octavia fight of Splatoon 1. That's where the Squid Sisters played Calamari Inkantation. According to Marina, Octolings that hear the song become discontent with Octarian society and choose to leave. Oh yeah, and also, the melody is etched into Inkling and Octoling DNA. What? No wonder it's so good at stopping the effects of brainwashing. And if it wasn't obvious already, Octolings are very similar to Inklings and they embrace Inkling culture. A culture full of music, popularity, fashion, and war games. Although I don't think most Inklings have caught on to the fact that these are Octolings, you know, Octarians. But why does that matter? We have Marina as the new Octoling announcer, and now we can play as Octolings after completing the expansion. So it's not too crazy to think that the Shades could have been an upgraded attempt to stop the influence of Calamari Inkantation. So let's continue to focus on Octolings, NW Player 123 and Playable Octolings. She is a self-proclaimed game modder extraordinaire and preservationist. During version 2.0.0 of Splatoon 1, she data mined the game's code and found playable Octolings. The only way to play as one was to mod them into the game since they were never officially playable. Naturally, I asked her how she did this, and basically, she made a WebKit and kernel exploit with her friend to modify data. She swapped out models and files and made a memory patch to replace a string of code because the Octoling's eyes wouldn't render properly. Finally, she found out that you can modify a single byte in a save file for some unused code. But this caused an unforeseen issue for players. Splatoon 1 online Octoling hack save file corruptions. Softlocks are obviously bad. This happened because the previously mentioned byte determines gender, and its value is equal to 0 or 1 for boy and girl, but you can change it to a 2 to play as an Octoling. So then if the online spot pass catches that your profile has that value of 2 in it, it'll nuke other people's plazas that you appear in. People created their own strategies to combat save file corruptions, with the best solution being to stay in the player room with the Octoling until they disappear. Once they left, people would play one more match and then everything would be fine. Saving your data on a USB was also a good way to combat Octolings, because at least you had a backup if everything went wrong. We don't have this problem in Splatoon 2, obviously, because we can play as Octolings after finishing the expansion. Patrick Gilland posted a video playing with NW Player 123 to showcase playable Octolings. They also have their own Kraken models too, as shown by Senpai Guile in their own separate video. The tentacles curl up too to appear visually different to Inkling Krakens. It's pretty cool that this was just here in the game. There's always so much stuff hidden in game files and folders ready to be shown or modified. Pearl X Marina. Okay, before you ask, no, this has nothing to do with any, adult content. What this is actually about is the relationship between Pearl and Marina. During the Chaos vs. Order Splatfest of Splatoon 2, Pearl makes it seem like she's going to end off the hook. But nah, she just wants her and Marina to branch off into new genres of music. But then Pearl reaches deep into her heart and says this to Marina. Just look at the eyes Pearl is giving Marina as well too, but this was the main conversation that started Pearl x Marina. They could very well just be lovers. You know, a duo in the streets and a splatfest in the sheets. Savage Marina. She just destroys Pearl whenever she gets the chance. Just look at these. Great question, Pearl, because this video is sponsored by the lovely people over at Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN is a tool that you can use to encrypt your data and hide your online location. You see, when you connect to a VPN service, your information is encrypted and decrypted safely by the VPN server. This is what allows you to access region-locked content by changing your location. That means Pearl can watch her favorite show region-locked to Octo Canyon while still being in Inkopolis. But in my case, I have a Netflix subscription and I want to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But uh-oh, it's not available where I live. With Atlas VPN, this issue is easily solved because I can just change my location to France. Just like that, I can watch JoJo Seasons 1 to 2 and a bunch of other region-locked content exclusive to many other countries. This doesn't just apply to Netflix. You can use this VPN service on other streaming sites like Disney+, Amazon Prime, BBC iPlayer, Hulu, HBO, and many more. What's also impressive is that Atlas VPN is available on all devices, so you can watch all the shows you want on any device you own. There's currently an 86% discount for their 3-year deal with a 30-day money-back guarantee for just $139 a month. Not even Sheldon has a deal this good, so what are you waiting for? Check out their service by clicking their link in the video description below or in the pinned comment. Thank you Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. Now let's continue on with the next Iceberg entry. Japan Idol Vocaloid Concerts. Nintendo has been setting up these hologram concerts since 2016. They first featured the Squid Sisters and then Off the Hook joined in. They have 9 concerts in total from 2016 to 2019. Due to a certain bra moment, there wasn't any in 2020. These are very similar to Vocaloid concerts. Think Hatsune Miku. So the band duos appear as holograms and they sing and move around. There's also a good mix of live and pre-recorded audio used throughout the show. It looks pretty realistic and everyone's having a good time, but honestly, it looks a little uncanny. I don't know how to describe it, but their movements seem a bit off. Setting that aside, I'd be down to go to one of these with my homies. It looks like a ton of fun. Splatoon 1 and 2 train. There is a train system present in Splatoon 1 seen at Inkopolis Plaza, and some people thought that you could actually ride them places. That wasn't the case, but the Splatoon 2 Octo expansion made it possible because of the deep sea metro. Although the deep sea metro is underground compared to the trains seen above ground in Splatoon 1. I guess we never needed to use the trains above land because of the super jump, but you can't super jump in a train underground, so trains are needed for travel. Rank S plus 50. This was the highest rank you could get in Splatoon 2's ranked battles. However, in version 3.0.0, Rank X was introduced, which replaced ranks S plus 10 to S plus 50. With Rank X, players fight for X power, which is similar to League power. You get matched with and against players of similar ranks, and each season lasts a month. After that month is up, it's back to doing your placement matches to determine your X power again. Test fires in the world premiere Splatfest. The Splatoon Global Test Fire was a free Splatoon 1 demo that was released on May 8th, 2015 for the Wii U. That was 20 days before the global release of the full game. In the demo, players could play 4v4 turf wars at scheduled times. There were also options to pre-purchase the game at various points to get special gear to use in the demo, although the gear didn't carry over to the final game, which was strange. There was also another test fire called Splatoon Test Fire that was released on the 17th of August 2015. This demo had players battle it out during scheduled times too, and players could also purchase the full game through the demo. Splatoon 2 had a global test fire too. It was on the 24th of March 2017. This global test fire was set up like the other ones. Players could participate in 4v4 turf wars during scheduled times. But now we have the Splatoon 2 world premiere Splatfest. On July 7th, 2017, a few weeks before the game was released, we had a global Splatfest on the 15th of July. Japan had Rock vs Pop, and North America, Oceania, and Europe got Cake vs Ice Cream. There's no record of the results on Splatnet 2, but they're recorded on the Splatoon wiki. As we can see, Rock beat Pop 2-1, and Cake lost to Ice Cream 1-2. So we've gotten a few Splatoon demos leading up to the game's releases, and one a bit after Splatoon 1's release. Moving on from there, we have Sunken Scrolls and the Great Turf War. These scrolls can be found and collected in the hero mode levels for both games. One can be found in each stage. Splatoon 1 has 27 pages to collect and Splatoon 2 has 28. In Splatoon 2's case, the last page is a collection of stickers obtained after completing the balloon challenges in each overworld. There's a lot of concerning things found in these. From Splatoon 1, we can see that Inkling's brains are simple and predatory. Adam and Eve, a dig at Inkling culture, basically Octarian propaganda. We also have Humanity's Demise, Real Life, and Cryosleep. Splatoon 2 has some similar stuff, but it's more focused on the culture and the creatures of the world. So back to the first game scrolls, Sunken Scroll 12 shows that there was something called the Great War, and the first battles were won by the Octarians because the Inklings didn't wake up early enough in the morning to defend themselves. This war was actually the Great Turf War. In one of these battles, great Octo weapons stormed the Inkling stronghold. All seemed lost for the Inklings, until someone pulled the weapons plugs out of their sockets. We actually fight these Octo weapons as bosses in both hero modes and the Octo expansion. Back on topic, the Inklings had won the battle. Historians agreed that they won because Inklings had a superior number of limbs. Squids have 10 limbs versus an octopus's 8 limbs, so the math checks out. Now we have a photo of the Squid Beak Splatoon, Fighters of the War. We can see Captain Cuttlefish crossing his arms, and Sheldon's grandfather, Moses Schellendorf, is seen standing around. Not sure who the other people are, but Judd's here as well. This looks very stylized, but it is a photograph. This means that Captain Cuttlefish used to look like this. It's very contrasting to how he looks now. He can also be seen talking to an Octarian Octoling. They never thought that the rising sea levels would have caused them to battle over remaining territory. These are the same rising sea levels that made humanity go extinct. Here's a not so fun fact. The sea levels rose because of countless human wars that led to the South Pole being nuked. This caused all the icebergs to melt. And we all know that if the icebergs melt, I won't be able to make more content. Back on topic, global warming had a role in this too, but melting the ice was the breaking point. So once the octopuses, squids, and anything else evolved into bipedal legends, it started the mollusk era. They needed to live on land because of their land-dwelling forms, so they fought for it. In a way, we're feeling the after effects of the Great Turf War. As an example, the fight over the Great Zapfish. Octarian society had to escape to these underground domes because they lost the Turf War. Their homes started to crumble from a lack of electrical power, so they stole the Great Zapfish to save themselves. But hey, the world of Splatoon is ever evolving, and the game's writers have clearly put a lot of thought and effort into this story they've created. That was a lot to talk about, so let's move on to the flying Great Zapfish. We all know the Great Zapfish, it powers the whole of Inkopolis. It's also over 100 years old, and it's been stolen by the Octarians twice, once in each game. So after rescuing it in Splatoon 2, it'll wrap itself around the Decker Tower. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you can see it flying around Inkopolis Square. How majestic. Idols waving back at you in Splatoon 1 and 2.
Dear Diary, so today my favorite Inkopolis idols waved to me. It was so awesome. I'll never forget this day. I love them so much and I want to be with them forever and ever. I need them.
Who wrote this? Oh. After the news broadcast finishes, you can find Callie and Marie talking to each other in a studio room in Splatoon 1. Wait, in Splatoon 2, you can find Pearl and Marina chilling in a studio room too, and they'll wave to you as well. You kind of have to be pressed right up against the glass window staring them down though. Okay, so Ebb and Flow / Dudes Be Sleepin' demo and the Testfire music. So let's start off with Ebb and Flow. It's a song performed by Off the Hook and it has some history. But first of all, this song is great. We're listening to it right now. It's fast, gets you pumped, and has a good balance of rapping and singing. It lives up to its name too. Ebb and flow is the recurrent pattern of coming and going, or decline and regrowth. The song feels like it does that, like a cycle. You know, you gain some turf, and then you lose that turf, and then you gain it back, lose it, gain it back, 1 minute left, everything gets frantic, and then the match is over. This was also the song that gave Off the Hook their first bit of popularity. It was revealed in the Octo expansion that Marina created a demo of it on her own called Ebb and Flow.fresh. Eight-Legged Advance was sampled for the song. That's the song you sometimes hear in Splatoon 1's Hero Mode missions, you know, the one that's like Well anyway, she got Pearl to listen to it after asking her to form a duo band together. Pearl had nothing to lose, her solo career wasn't going anywhere, so they formed Off the Hook and that was their first single. If you haven't heard this song before, then you haven't been playing Splatfests. The song only plays during Splatfest battles. There's also an Octo expansion remix of this song that plays during the final Turf War battle against Commander Tata. The first 2 minutes of the level plays Fly Octo Fly, however, the final minute is a new song that acts similarly to Now or Never, aka the song that plays in the last minute of a Turf War. This song is called Ebb and Flow Octo. It really does make the boss fight a dramatic Now or Never epic grand finale. I mean, dare I say it, but these songs are hands down some of the best songs in the game, if not the best songs. And then just when you think it's all over, BAM! Another remix of Ebb and Flow plays during Pearl's Scream Off with Tata. There are some other versions of the song and its remixes too. We have Ebb and Flow Live and Ebb and Flow Octo Live. These are all slightly different from the versions they derive from. Now moving on to the Dudes Be Sleepin' demo, aka first heard in session 9 of Marina's chat room, it's a heavy metal song screamed by Pearl. It's pretty vulgar, hence why the title is censored, why a lyric is censored, and why it was never played on any Inkopolis radio stations. It ends with a large crash, followed by murmur from the audience, and then Pearl speaking into the microphone. The file name for the song is Rec Bow Down Ball Gig 08.mp8. Pearl brought it up as her and Marina were looking back at her solo career. They mentioned that the song sold only 1,000 copies in total. Damn. But it's okay because Ebb and Flow was released a little after Dudes Be Sleepin'. This could imply that this was Pearl's final solo career song before partnering up with Marina. Now onto the Testfire music. Splatoon 2's Testfire had its own versions of some of the music. Incoming, Rip Entry, Undertow, and Now or Never are different in the Testfire. They're just slightly different versions to what we get in the final version of the game. There's really not much to these Testfire songs, so that's that. But it's pretty amazing that even the songs in the game have a story behind them. I mean, every song in the game is linked to a fictional band or artist. Let's move on from here to discuss Japanese exclusive gear and design contest by KoroKoro and Famitsu. So in November of 2017, a magazine by the name of KoroKoro announced that there would be a new gear set released for Splatoon 2. This set would be called the Emperor gear and was worn by Emperor, a recurring character from the Splatoon manga. Hey again, it's me, while editing. So basically what's happened is I got this for Christmas and I got it from a friend. He knows who he is, he knows what he's done, and you go, everything seems normal. This is the first page, by the way. So Inkopolis Plaza, everything's chillin', and then, the fuck is this? What is this? To get this set, players had to have a download code from the December 2017 issue of the magazine. Similarly, a set of spy gear was announced on the 9th of June 2018. More was unveiled a month after, and it was made available via download code from the September 2018 issue of the magazine. Finally, KoroKoro hosted a drawing competition for designing new gear, and the winning design got put into the game. It was released on the 15th of April 2019. I really dig this one and the Emperor set, not so much the spy ones. Now, Famitsu is a video game magazine in real life and a clothing brand in Splatoon 2. They offered some gear for anyone that purchased the 4th Koshien fan book, which was released on the 4th of March 2019. It seems to be an Octo pattern bandana and a hoodie. It seems alright. Just as a small mention, there was some gear promoted through 7-Eleven in Japan. However, they were made available for Western players via the My Nintendo Rewards program for 100 platinum points. But its availability ended on the 2nd of January 2020. Now continuing on with clothes, well, shoes, Splatoon x Nike. Japan had an exclusive Nike-sponsored Splatfest between March 24th and March 25th of 2018. It was the latest model versus popular model, so it was the Nike Air Max 270s versus the Nike Air Max 95s. Pearl was the team captain for the 270s, and Marina was the team captain for the 95s. There were also some shoes that were available to order off the Splatnet companion app. They mimicked the 270s and the 95s. That's cool and all, but what were the results of this Splatfest? Marina won 2-1, but only just. This whole Splatfest feels really strange to me because of the whole real-world influence behind it. But it still fits the theme of Splatfest, participating in war games to fight over trivial topics. Post-boss sounds. So before and after defeating a boss in either game's hero modes, you can have the option to just hang around and do nothing. If you wait long enough, unnerving sounds can be heard coming from the pits underneath the boss arena. These are extremely off-putting for a game like Splatoon. Heck, even when Tsubasa Sakaguchi, the game's co-director, was questioned on it, he said he had never heard of it and didn't know it was even in the game. Here's what some of it sounds like. Fan theories and speculations began to run wild, with the biggest one linking with Splatoon 2's Octo expansion. We are introduced to the Deep Sea Metro in Agent 8, the 10,008th participant in Captain Tartar's testing. Obviously, Tartar isn't a good guy. It's an AI that was created by the Professor 12,000 years before the events of Splatoon 2. He's the same dude that had Judd cryogenically frozen for 10,000 years and allowed him to be cloned to create Lil Judd. He wanted to make sure the next intelligent life forms didn't make the same mistakes as humans, so he wanted to pass down knowledge to them as a way to help them out. Tartar was supposed to do that. He even saw hope in the Inklings, Octarians, and Octolings. But after witnessing their evolution, countless wars, and obsession with fashion and trivial things, it had concluded that they were not worthy of this knowledge. So its new plan was to kill everything and create the ultimate life form. That's what the Blender's for. Why is all of this important to know? Because it's believed we hear this process happening while we hang around the boss arenas. The train sounds, the agonizing screams. Look at what Tartar puts us through. It would be safe to say that we can hear the suffering of the test subjects. The Digital Dream Club on YouTube has a great video covering this, so check it out if you can. There's also a creepypasta style theory about the developers of the game being worked to hell. The adrenaline and craziness felt during development caused them to scream and act irrational, so their pain made it into the game. Pat, if you're watching this, take notes. Now finally, to finish off this layer, we have Splatoon Esports. There is an esports scene for Splatoon 2. It's not as big as, say, League of Legends or Counter-Strike, but it's sizable enough to exist. Here's a fun fact. It's the only Nintendo IP to have an esports scene fully backed by Nintendo. They definitely don't treat it like they would treat Smash Bros. I mean, sometimes because, you know, hashtag free melee happened. Nintendo's relationship with esports is strange, to say the least. I'll touch on this fiasco a little later into the video, so going back on topic, watching top-level Splatoon gameplay is an experience. It's so calculated and fast-paced. It's probably the most unique esport you could watch too. And with that being said, we're finished up with this layer. It was enormous. I had written up 8 pages discussing everything. That's about 2 times what I would usually write for a layer on average. So now, we'll be moving on to the next layer, so let's get into it. To start this layer off, I'm gonna hand it over to a good friend. I've had him on the channel before, and here he is again. So give a big warm welcome to Big Marsh!
Thank you. It is I, Large Quagmire, and I am back again to read more entries. Sunflower was nice enough to have me back on, so here I am to read even more Iceberg entries. Splatoon means so much to me. It was the first shooter I ever played, and I bought it on release on the Wii U eShop. Like, I still play it to this day every so often, and there's still a community there. Very small, granted, but there is still a community. I haven't played Splatoon 2, but that game looks even better in every aspect. So, I'm so happy that Sunflower invited me here today to help him with this iceberg. But I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's hop straight into it with Male Octoling Afro Hitbox Myth. When Octolings were first released, it was thought that the afro hairstyle males could have would have a different hitbox. It wasn't the case, however. I've seen a video trying to show you that you can clip the afro with a shot of ink, but it doesn't really work. Spike and Marsh eat super sea snails alive. Spike is a sea urchin that we can find in Inkopolis Plaza. In Splatoon 1, after reaching level 4, you can order gear that other players in your plaza are wearing. Each piece of gear you order will be placed in a queue of up to 3 items, where, after a day, you can then collect the gear from Spike. That's not what matters here though. Handing him your well-earned sea snails can re-roll the sub-abilities on your gear. Take a look at the snails. Some are cowering of fear while a pile of shells sits next to them. Suspicious. But moving on to Splatoon 2, Spike is replaced with Marsh, another sea urchin. Now Spike used a get-rich-quick scheme that goes as follows. Super Sea Snail, Tree, Coins, Laptop. Anyways, he made 10 million G in a year. So obviously he's enjoying life with his money in this cafe. Marsh is probably doing the exact same get-rich scheme. So you can get ordered gear from him, he'll also be able to re-roll your sub-abilities, and he can do some other stuff too. So they're both sea urchins. Huh? As a species, they pretty much eat whatever they can. Sea snails are on the menu, and our merchants don't want to move from their spots in Inkopolis. So where would they eat? Right there in front of the other sea snails. No wonder they cower in fear. Now I think I've cracked the scheme. These little urchins have set up a business where they order clothes for a cheap price, inflate them, and then sell them to us. Their profits are enormous. One of the other stuff I said Marsh can do does refer to the ability to scrub your sub-ability slots. Sea urchins have sharp teeth and they can scrape algae off rocks, so it's not too much of a stretch to think that maybe they could scrape the sub-abilities off your gear. And then we give them money in snails for their services, and then they've secured a rich, happy life. Although I still have no idea what the tree refers to in their scheme though. Moving on from there, Splatoon 1 Inkbrush Piranha Pick Glitch. Head to this stage and bring a paintbrush, or, if you want to get fancy, a roller. Make sure you make your way to the middle of the map where the tower control tower spawns. After throwing out some ink with your weapon, smack yourself against the tower while walking on the conveyor belt, and then, ta-da! Boneless inkling. Technically, all inklings are boneless because they have no bones in their body, but this just shows how flexible and weird they can get. Unfortunately, this clearly intentional feature was patched in the 2.5.0 version of the game, and since then we have never been able to see boneless inklings in their true form. Most idols are not inklings, but cuttlefish. This theory is sort of linked to the Captain Craig cuttlefish. In Splatoon 1, Callie and Marie confirmed to Agent 3 that the captain is their grandfather, so he's a cuttlefish, making his granddaughter's cuttlefish as well, right? No. But I hear you. You remember that he said he has cuddle bones in the Octo expansion. It was a joke. See, Cuttlefish Man is actually an inkling. Here's why. During the Octo expansion, he spits some straight fire occasionally, and during one of his bars, he says he's 130 years old. That's really old if you didn't know. How is he able to be this old? In the Art of Splatoon, an official Splatoon art book, it says that inklings can preserve their bodies by sun drying. Inklings lose ink as they get older, so that's how they would be able to do this. Plus, I've heard that he fought in the Great Turf War, and he very much looks like some of the other inklings. Also, here he is in squid form, as seen in Splatoon 1 credits. So what about Pearl and Marina? Pearl is an inkling, and there's nothing that states otherwise. Well, other than this theory I found here, comparing Pearl's body features to a cuttlefish. It's interesting, but I think it's a bit of a stretch. Oh, but Marina is clearly an Octoling. Damn, she's taller than Sunflower too. Ultra Hammer Shortcut. Before version 5.0.1 of Splatoon 2, you used to be able to use the momentum of your Ultra Stomp swings to skip certain parts of the level. Weasley MK shows this off in his video. Obviously, this is a pretty huge exploit. You can avoid fights and flank your opponents with ease to get an advantage over them, which is why it was patched.
Best special weapon, 10 out of 10. No one can beat it.
And I think that's about all I have to cover. Thank you again so much to Sunflower for having me. These were fun to go through. There's actually quite a bit of this that I didn't even realize was in Splatoon 1. And overall, I just had a good time.
And now I can't read anymore. So that's it. I'm gone. Peace.
Thank you again to Mr. Marsh, and now we'll be moving on to Splatfest Determine the Future. So I've already said that Splatoon 1's final Splatfest, Callie vs Marie, was won by Marie 3-0. Development of Splatoon 2 had already begun prior to the start of the Splatfest. What's awesome is that the production team had agreed on having the game's story reflect the results of the Splatfest. The phrase, "Your choice will change the next Splatoon" was going to be the tagline for the Splatfest, but it was ultimately scrapped because the game wasn't even announced at that point. Instead, the Squiz Sister stories were published on the official Nintendo Splatoon website. This is an excellent read, I would highly recommend. It set up the events of the Splatoon 2 story, and I'll explain it in one of the next entries. Fun fact, Splatoon producer Hisashi Nogami sided with Team Callie and was upset with the 3-0 loss to his team.
Know your place.
Now that brings us to the second game's final Splatfest, the Splatpocalypse. Chaos vs Order. I mean, technically it's not the final Splatfest, but regarding story content, it is. Anyway, basically, Pearl represented Team Chaos, while Marina represented Team Order, and Pearl won 3-0. Another landslide victory during a final Splatfest. So if we're to believe that this Splatfest will also affect the next Splatoon game, then oh boy, I am worried. We know Marina used to live and work under the Octarian regime. It's not exactly her fault though, she didn't know any better. But what if she cracks and goes back to the Octarians? The gear we got from her team was this helmet and glasses. The helmet is called the Eye of Justice, and the glasses are called the Hive Mind Antenna. The helmet looks like something a security guard or soldier would wear, and everyone wearing the antennas would probably be able to think like a hive mind. Can you see the picture I'm painting? Let's hope that Marina doesn't go crazy with trying to control people. And let's hope that Off the Hook continues to make cool music with no problems. No problems at all. Alright, Splatoon 3 was announced while I'm editing this video and I am so hyped. And I know you all feel the same way I do. My thoughts on Marina going a bit cuckoo crazy may not be right. The first thing I thought of when I saw this was Team Chaos. They won the Splatfest and this is most likely their influence on the setting of Splatoon 3. I've been discussing it with JG Ultra and some other friends and here's what we've noticed. Character customization. It seems like a step up from Splatoon 2. Cool eye colors, universal hairstyles, and more shorts options. We get a little Salmonoid body and it can be customized a bit too. A bow? Probably more new weapon types to get excited for. The Eiffel Tower? This means that Splatoon as a whole, or this game specifically, could be set in a post-human France, or near a post-human France. Now, this whole place in general, at first, I thought it could have been Calamari County, but everything seems to be dried up. So it got us thinking, is this the bottom of the ocean? A dried up land? Why is everything so dried up? What could Team Chaos and Pearl have done? Speaking of Pearl, the idols. They are nowhere to be found in this trailer. I wonder what's happened to them and other specific characters in the Splatoon universe. This desert area looks enormous, so maybe we're gonna get an open world hero mode too. Maybe we'll be able to find key characters in the hero mode as well, old and new. We are then shown this new hub world, possibly set in Inkopolis. This big place looks pretty condensed. Hopefully there are some new things to do here. Multiplayer. This is where it's gonna be at. New spawning systems. No more spawn point. You choose the spawn point thanks to these coffee machines. Why? I don't know. With Chaos, there's less restrictions, so maybe that's why. Or maybe it's just because the regular spawn points just don't work anymore. One thing I've noticed is this Inkling's movement here. Maybe we have some new strafing options. Now the weapons, they seem bigger and heavier than usual. Crab? Possibly a new sub-weapon? Or maybe it's a special weapon. My best guess on what it does is it'll act like an automated sentry gun that shoots at players in its range. Speaking of special weapons, something similar looking to the Inkzooka is back. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Inkzooka or a modified version of it. I'm going to discuss the bans of Splatoon 1 special weapons in the next entry, so let's just say Chaos wouldn't uphold the law and regulations, or maybe there's just a complete lack of law and regulations. And that's that. Back into the ink 2022. I am so ready, and I hope you are too. Why Splatoon 1 special weapons and Rainmaker were actually banned. Have you noticed that none of the special weapons in Splatoon 1 made it into Splatoon 2? In-game lore shows us that they actually got banned. Looking at Sunken Scroll 11 from the game, we can see that posters are stuck to this page. You'll notice that the Ink Strike and the Inkzooka are seen illustrated. The text associated with the page reads as followed. Major changes to regulations by the powers that have been held to a call for the complete replacement and overhaul of all special weapons. Designers and manufacturers are struggling to comply with this new regulation. New regulations, huh? Well, yeah, because they were all extremely powerful and insanely dangerous. Manufacturers struggled to comply, but they eventually did it, and hey, from a gameplay perspective, the new special weapons are fairly balanced, at least I think they are. Plus the Rainmaker was nerfed too. It doesn't act like an Inkzooka anymore, it shoots balls now. I know I've already said it, but damn, the amount of detail that's gone into story building for these games is insane. It's so good, so juicy. Super jumps are based on flying squids. The Japanese flying squid, also known as the Pacific flying squid, is the topic of this entry. These things have been noted to be able to fly as much as 30 meters above the surface of water. Presumably, they do this to avoid predators and to save energy as they move across vast oceans. We can do this in Splatoon as well because of the super jump. We're able to target a teammate, spawn location, or beacon and jump to it. And when the story calls for it, anyone can just jump to wherever they want. Octolings can do this too, but there's no such thing as a flying octopus. I think they can do it because, you know, it would be very unbalanced if they couldn't. So there you go. It's assumed that the idea for the super jump came from these flying squids. Neat. Commander Tartar's primordial ooze is blended Octolings. Here we go. So remember when I talked about Tartar's psychotic plan? This is part of its plan to kill everything and create the ultimate life form. Octolings and basically anything else killed in the metro that obtains all 4 things is to be used to make this ooze. When you collect all 4 things in the Octo expansion, Tartar will put them all together to make a blender. He basically tries to kill you and Captain Cuttlefish, and it's for the ooze. This isn't some theory. Quote, now here's something you need to know. The primordial ooze is used to sterilize and control Octarians and anything else Tata wants to control. But it is also something that will be used to create the ultimate life form. It gets sadder. Deadfish, an Octoling music artist, is green and blue. She's been sanitized and is noted to have little of her former self and memories remaining. The subtitle for the Drop the Base station reads, "Back Like I Never Left," which insinuates that the sanitized Octostomp has memories of its previous battles. So even though they've lost their free will, they still probably retain some memories. It gets scarier. We play as Agent 8, aka number 10,008, the 10,008th participant in Tata's testing. There have been so many others before Agent 8. The amount of Octolings and other creatures that have been blended, died trying to complete the tests, or have escaped is unconfirmed. But we can assume most, if not all, have met death. It's obvious that these tests are designed to wean out the weak test subjects so that only the quote-unquote best DNA is used to create the primordial ooze. These test subjects were all somebodies at some point. Agent 8 clearly has a love for poetry, friends, and has been swayed by Calamari Inkantation. Plus, I love their tolerance for Captain Cuttlefish's antics.
Shut your bitch ass up!
Calamari Inkantation has swayed the minds of Marina, Agent 8, and who knows how many more Octolings have been swayed. Back on topic, Agent 8 was very fortunate to have the help of so many people which led to their escape. This whole time, Tata had actually been very upfront with us about the blender. It promised us access to the Promised Land. You think that would mean Inkopolis? No, Tata's version of the Promised Land is a higher plane. So heaven, death, the ooze. There's no way we could have known that because that's its version of a promised land. So now you know that the ooze that it wants to use to create the ultimate life form is the blended remains of other creatures. Hidden Splatoon comic on Nintendo's website that explains the events between 1 and 2. I previously mentioned that it is a great read and I would highly recommend reading it. I've left a link to it in the description if you feel like doing so. But just as a quick summary, here's what happens. The popularity of the Squiz sisters after the Callie vs Marie Splatfest was through the roof, and their lives became super corporate and super busy. Marie felt as though they were growing apart due to their new schedules. Callie, clearly overwhelmed, overworked, and not thinking straight, went missing before a family trip to Calamari County. Marie went to look for help. Agent 3 and Captain Cuttlefish were nowhere to be found, probably because they were stuck in the deep sea metro, and the police's searches were unfruitful. Marie left for Inkopolis Square to find the freshest and most skillful inkling she could find, aka Agent 4. And that's where Splatoon 2 starts us off at. The story is really good at explaining a few things, but we still have no real idea as to why Callie ended up in the hands of DJ Octavio. If you replay the fight against DJ Octavio in Splatoon 2, Marie will point out that we're fighting DJ Octavio and Callie again. Callie will tell you that she's fighting with Octavio again because the Hypno Shades look good on her. This implies that Callie busted Octavio out of the cum jar on purpose and now we're doing this again. But hey, that's okay. Marie will always come to her aid whenever she commits treason. Every single time. How sweet. In the official Splatoon 2 art book, there are illustrations of Callie looking a bit upset in what appears to be an Octarian alleyway. She seems to be carrying a gun and there's ink on the floor. We can see another image of her being comforted by an Octarian who looks to be clearly sympathizing with her. Maybe it's not too outlandish to think that she went to the Octarians in her sad state. It paints a small picture. She went to the Octarians but was a bit hesitant. And then she let them in on her problems and maybe even made a friend. But in the end, she succumbed to DJ Octavio's plans. But I mean, who knows? That's just my speculation. Anyway, after the off-the-hook news announcement that Callie is back, we get a new song from the Squiz sisters play as the credits roll. It's called Fresh Start. It's their fresh start as a duo. The Squiz sisters were finally back. And what's stopping us from having our fresh starts too? No more of this clout chasing, no more of this sheltered view of the world, no more mindless war games, and heck, no more of this division we force upon ourselves.
But don't you ever try to tell me that sweaters are cooler than socks.
And with that, we should move on to using beacons to get out of the test range in Splatoon 2. To do this, you have to use a movement exploit that allows you to get extra height. So what do I mean by that? As you can see in this Wesley MK video on the topic, after a few inkjet weapon swap jumps, there's a beacon placed, it's jumped to, and then rinse and repeat until you're outside of the test range area. Wesley shows off that you can walk on the pipes and bars on the ceiling, and you can clip into geometry too. It's a pretty neat glitch that lets you see certain parts of the test range area that you wouldn't be able to see normally. The glitch is like a happy little accident. So here's a funny little accident. Great Zapfish accidentally removed in update. In 2017, version 2.0.0 for Splatoon 2 was released. For some reason, the Great Zapfish had just disappeared from everyone's Inkopolis squares. Why and how? Who knows, but Nintendo did address it, saying it was a mistake and would be fixed soon. And then eventually, the Great Zapfish was back. Hold on, is this canon? Was the third kidnapping of the Great Zapfish by Nintendo? Here's some more Zapfish talk. Great Zapfish in Piranha Pit. In both games, walk over here in the Piranha Pit stage and wait until the last minute of the match. Look into the distance where this lake lies and then ooh, the Great Zapfish. And that about brings us to the end of this layer. This one was full of glitches, some facts, and speculations. So let's move on to the third layer of the iceberg, but the final layer for this video. All armor sets are obtainable as gear in Splatoon 2. There was a rumor spread that you could obtain every armor piece from both games as gear. As cool as it would have been, it's not true. Only 2 armor sets are available as gear, the Armor Replica Gear Set and the Null Armor Replica Gear Set. The Armor Replica Gear Set is unlocked through the use of the Marina amiibo. As we can see, it's the level 1 armor in the Splatoon 1 hero mode. The Null Armor Replica Gear Set can be obtained through the Octo expansion after completing 4, 5, and 6 Memcake sets. It's clear to see that this set replicates a level 2 armor pickup in the expansion. But sadly, that's it. There's no other ones you can unlock. Pearl and Marina concept art. Back to the Splatoon 2 art book, we have the Off the Hook Cruise concept art. Are you ready for what I'm about to unveil? I hope so, because here it is. Who is responsible for this? I mean, Marina doesn't look too different from her final design, but Pearl, she looks like a whole different lady. Oh, and this drawing, dude, you thought Wario on the pole was looking good? God damn. There's more concept art of Pearl here in a dress. She even has this little inkling form. And here she is in some fancy clothes with an umbrella. Now, I'll go over this tentacles image in the next entry, so let's focus on this one. Look at Pearl's hair! She's an Octoling in this image! This definitely would have changed Pearl's backstory and just Pearl herself. Maybe she would have come to Inkopolis with Marina after the Calamari Inkantation event. They seem to be wearing matching outfits too, and Captain Cuttlefish is really into it. But I think that's the issue. They seem too similar. I mean, we already have a band duo that dress similar to each other anyway, so I'm glad they went with this finalized version of Pearl. She's great the way she is. But imagine rocking up to Inkopolis Square and seeing this. Off the Hook was going to be called Tentacles. I think this refers to the fact that it could have been called Tentacles worldwide, because in Japan, Off the Hook is called Tentacles. Tentakuruzu. Let's go back to this image. We can see a colorful tentacle sign in the background, plus some horns and boxes. I have no idea what they were going for here, but I dig it. It's fresh and it looks jazzy. In any case, I for one think that Off the Hook is a great name for the duo. Plus, they have their little catchphrase, and I like that. Inklings can be in water, but they can't swim. As you know, if you jump into water as an Inkling or Octoling, you can't swim. You and your ink sort of just diffuse into the water and then you respawn. But it's okay, see, as long as you're standing in the water, you're totally fine. I assume your ink sac goes completely wild once you're submerged in water and you just diffuse into nothing. From a gameplay perspective, this is a pretty cool kill barrier. And it makes sense from a story perspective as well. You know what doesn't make sense? Oh boy, here we go. Just a quick Google search gives us this. A lot of red blood. I mean, that's kinda creative. Inklings and Octolings swim in ink, but now it's blood. I picked out one from DeviantArt to read called Splatoon Creepypasta, The Bloodlings. You can check it out if you want. Link in the description. I read it. It's, interesting to say the least. In summary, it's about inklings that shoot blood and cause hell, and eventually, the blood consumed the player's inkling. At least, that's what I thought it was about. I got tired while reading it, okay? I had a quick glance at some other ones that I'll link in the description as well. They all seem to follow a theme of blood or red ink, the game talking to the player, and some demonic stuff. Unfortunately, there was no hyper-realistic eyes or blood or picking up a game from a garage sale. If I had read these years ago when I was younger, I may have been scared by it, but I don't know. Reading them now, it's just like they're mediocre, they're okay, and that's okay. But this next entry isn't. Hashtag Free Melee Fiasco. Nintendo cancelled the Splatoon 2 North American Open Tournament Finals livestream in December of 2020 because teams were actively showing support for the hashtag. They also wanted to enter the tournament with hashtag-inspired names. Nintendo is weirdly authoritarian when it comes to their IPs. Stuff like this seems to happen most when speaking out against one of their questionable decisions or messing around with their games. You know, I get that legally, they can stop the Melee tournament and Splatoon tournament live streams, but just because you can do something, it doesn't mean you need to. And it really blew up in Nintendo's face because everyone dropped out of the tournament. The players made their own event and they live streamed it without Nintendo. It had the most viewers any Western Splatoon event has ever had, and the prize pool, which was gathered up through donations, was the highest ever for a Western Splatoon tournament. That's 2 records broken without the help of Nintendo. That's really good for the players and fans. I love seeing when people come together for a good cause. Sure, it's not the most important thing, but it's still nice to see. On a brighter note from Nintendo, we have the Splatoon Mess Fest. This was an event held in Santa Monica, California. There were celebrities there, demos of Splatoon 1 for people to play, but most importantly, the obstacle course. I love obstacle courses, and goddamn, this one looks like a lot of fun. You got people jumping through tires of ink, shooting stuff, and just sliding around. Unfortunately, the participants did not have the ability to turn into squids. Such a shame. Squid Sister and Off the Hook Amiibo Secret Concert Myth. In Splatoon 1, you can unlock a total of 7 Squid Sister concerts with the Callie and Marie amiibos. 5 of these are Squid Sister concerts and the other 2 are solo concerts, 1 for each Squid Sister cousin. In Splatoon 2, Off the Hook amiibos unlock some themes for the Squid Beats 2 machine. Plus you can take photos with Off the Hook as well, which is pretty cool, and you also get some gear correlating to Pearl and Marina. Using the Callie and Marie amiibos gives you the Hero Replica gear set and the Armor Replica gear set from Splatoon 1. You can also take photos with them. They don't give you any sort of secret Squid Sister and Off the Hook collab concert or anything, and just as the entry states, this was just a myth. Do you by any chance own any Callie and Marie amiibos? Because if you do, you're kind of sitting on a goldmine. Squid Sister samples in single player and Octo expansion OST. Who would have thought that the biggest Inkopolis duo would have their songs sampled? So let's have a look at some that I think are interesting. Turquoise October is a band from both Splatoon games. They're also presumably made up exclusively of Octarians. They have a new album in Splatoon 2 that you can hear when you're playing the hero mode. Remember, Callie joined up with the Octarians before the events of Splatoon 2. And because of that, we have new Callie inspired music. The Girl from Inkopolis. Gee, I wonder who that refers to. Callie, and her vocals were sampled from the Squid Sisters song Ink Me Up. Here, take a listen. Now the song Shooting Starfish, we have even more sampling, specifically from Maritime Memory. Maritime Memory has samples from other songs too. Moving on to the Octo expansion, there's Calamari Inkantation sampling in the Deep Sea Metro subway car. Now this one is interesting. So the theme in the subway car changes depending on how many things you have. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and if you've completed the expansion. In the completed the expansion version, you can hear a quiet, delicate sounding Calamari incantation played in beat with the song. However, this might be a little different to sampling. Sound director Minegishi confirms that the song is an auditory hallucination from Agent 8. An inner melody of their mind that grows stronger as more of their memories return. Take a listen. Calamari Inkantation and probably its alternate versions too have so much power. So if we can hear the inner melody of Agent 8, does that mean we're also listening to it in the secret Agent 3 fight? Oh my god, this blurs the line between what is diegetic and non-diegetic. You know, music that we and the other characters can hear and or interact with versus what we can only hear. Is everything diegetic in some way, or is it only some things? Just as a special mention, it seems like the Turquoise October song for Octo Canyon's World 5 samples Off the Hook's song Acid Hues. Maybe they're a fan of Off the Hook? Or maybe it's the other way around. Marina has turquoise tips in her hair and on her fingers. Turquoise October has turquoise in the band's name. So it could go either way. I don't really know if any of those have a correlation, but it's a cool observation. So you see, samples are like onions. They have lots of layers to them. Speaking of layers, remixes. I just want to point something out. Bomb Rush Blush was performed by Kelly. DJ Octavio remixed it and featured Kelly in the song. He also called it Bomb Rush Blush. Very original. And then DJ Octavio remixed his Bomb Rush Blush remixed and featured Kelly and Marie in it. That song is called Title Rush. What a very polite music battle. Sticking to the topic of DJ Octavio, Octavio is stuck in squid form. Octopus form. In Splatoon 1, Sunken Scroll 16, we can see who we believe to be DJ Octavio in his bipedal form, and he's talking to a younger Captain Cuttlefish. Check out this image of them fighting from Marina's chat log from the expansion. It's crazy cool. So he has one, and it's assumed that he's stuck in his octopus form. Why? My theory is that it's because he's so old, he's lost the ability to do so. If Captain Cuttlefish is drying out, then that explains why he's never in squid form. Maybe it's the opposite for Octavio. His bipedal form is suffering, so he never goes back to it. It really does seem involuntary. Squid and octopus style forms are for moving in ink. I mean, we can't even stand properly if we use them, nor can we shoot. But he seems to be able to do some complicated stuff in Octo form, which shows that he may have just adapted to it completely. He merely lives with the pain. Tofu, Rabbit, and Mario builds. Before we had the Inklings and Octolings we all love, we had Tofu, Rabbits, and Mario. When Splatoon was first being conceptualized, big tofu-looking blocks were playable characters. They would hide in the ground and emerge when you wanted them to shoot. It doesn't really look like they're shooting ink though. It looks more like they're spraying tofu juice or something. And wow, grey versus white. Very colorful. Clearly, tofu didn't work. So the only logical step was rabbits. Duh. But actually, rabbits are territorial, so having them fight over turf was a solid idea. The hiding in ink mechanic was here too. Kind of. Instead of just phasing into the floor, rabbits could hide in their shirts. That's actually kinda creative. This rabbit concept was used for a while, and we even have some fresh concept art and models made of them. But there was one thing that didn't make any sense. Why were rabbits shooting ink at each other? I can sort of understand why tofu might, but it could be the rabbit juices? No. So the rabbits were scrapped for the only logical concept, Mario characters. If I had seen this in 2014, I would have told you that Mario with guns is crazy. But we have this, and this. Mario with guns didn't quite stick, so they thought long and hard. Another challenge they had was what to do with walls, and then they came up with the squid idea. It all clicked. Ink, squids, swimming up walls, reloading ink. Ah yes, the Inklings we all know and love. Wait. Oh, what? You can't get that shirt in the game? Must have been cut last minute or something. Now, if you want to learn more about these prototype builds and the overall development of Splatoon, check out this Beta 64 video if you can. It explains everything and I would highly recommend it. Link in description. The Inkling language is decipherable. Alright everyone, sit tight, this is gonna be a wild ride. There's a written Inkling language found in both games. It sort of resembles the English and Japanese language, but oh my god, it is so inconsistent. As an example, this says on air. Check out how the A looks here. Now here's cat. The A looks very different. There's even a language for the Octarians. I'll explain that in a bit, but because of all this inconsistency with the languages, deciphering it has become impossible. Like, what does this even mean? Look at all of these letters. But there's some very interesting points I want to talk about regarding deciphering the music of Splatoon. The first person I thought of when writing this was Caitlin Coy. Now, if you don't know who that is, she's a YouTuber that mainly makes Splatoon content. She's made a lot of fan content, like Octo Prism, which is an Octolings style news program and music duo. It's pretty interesting and it's great to see someone making content like this. She also live streams quite a bit, but that's not the focal point here. These are Vimo Productions. If you've watched my Fall Guys Iceberg video, which if you haven't, I recommend watching it after this video because I think it's pretty damn good, you would have noticed that I had lyrics present for the music inspired by Splatoon part. They were the ones from Caitlin's Spicy Calamari Inkantation and Fly Octo Fly Ebb and Flow music videos. So does this mean that the Inkling language is decipherable? No. Caitlin actually helped me out with this one, so shoutouts to her. Basically, the language is all gibberish, even the Octoling language. I was told to check out the Ebb and Flow Octo lyrics because of the way the lyrics are written. The Splatoon wiki had highlighted Pearl and Marina's parts in their respective colors. If you have a PhD in Japanese, you'll notice that Pearl's parts are written in hiragana, and Marina's parts are written in katakana. Both syllabaries share the same phonemic inventory, but katakana is used to transcribe foreign words to Japanese. This means that Marina, an Octoling, is probably speaking a different language to the Inkling one. What does this have to do with anything? Well, I thought it was interesting, but it also plays into the gibberish. Because coincidentally, the way this Japanese gibberish is structured creates the illusion of being able to hear actual words. Auditory pareidolia, the illusion of hearing lyrics created by our brain's never-ending pursuit to understand undecipherable gibberish using similar sounds found in real words. How could you? Wow. By the way, I made the Inkling/Octoling sound by making noises and doing this with my mouth. You're welcome. However, I believe that some gibberish is intentionally similar sounding to real-world words. Nasty Majesty opens up with
Frosty!
It sounds a lot like nasty. Ebb and Flow Octo has, which sounds a lot like saving the world. Calamari Inkantation has, which sounds like you need to hear our song. I could go on, and yes, of course, everyone interprets the gibberish in different ways because of language and individuality. But these real-world lyrics I showed you make sense for the context of the songs. But then again, my auditory pareidolia may be going off the charts. So no, the lyrics aren't decipherable. Instead, our brains create an illusion of deciphered lyrics. Also, yeah, do check out Caitlin's content when you can. I'm sure many of you are fans of her work anyway. Links in description. Sanitized Octolings are zombies. I already explained that when a creature is sanitized by Tartar's primordial ooze, it'll lose its free will, and there's some proof that it'll retain some memories too. There's something pretty major I left out about the sanitized Octolings and other sanitized creatures. And when I mean left out, I mean I read this entry, realized I had written about it during the mind control entry at the start of the video, and then removed it to talk about it now. This stuff is pretty sad. Marina reveals to Agent 8 and the gang that these sanitized creatures show no sign of life. They have no pulse. Most of the sanitized creatures that we find are Octarians. It seems like they can never escape indoctrination and mind control, especially the Octolings, who are forced to wear mind control shades. Imagine if an Octoling like Marina, who escaped Octarian society after listening to Calamari Inkantation, got thrown into the deep sea metro just to be drowned in primordial ooze and to be a zombie. Forever. Zombies are in Splatoon. That doesn't bode well for dead fish and all the other sanitized creatures. But it's weird, whenever we defeat one of them, glitchy looking effects pop out of them. Could they also have some sort of technology inside them too? I'm not sure. In good news, we've also seen that creatures can be desanitized. This happens to Agent 3 in the Octo expansion and to Ryder from the Splatoon manga. But it only seems like partial sanitization is reversible, as seen by theirs. Anyway, something else I chose not to share until now is that the Deep Sea Metro is run by Calamari Corporation. This is the company's logo. Does it look familiar? It should, because it's everywhere in the expansion. This testing and zombification is a corporate effort, and they have a DJ. Whether certain employees know the extent of what is happening is unknown, but Tada was probably the one running the show. I say was because C. Cucumber tells us that Calamari Corp doesn't exist anymore after beating Tada. So after beating Tada, what happens to the zombies? Are they free? Will they go ballistic? Or will they just melt away? Agent 8 was in Octo Valley, probably making his way to Inkopolis after hearing Calamari Inkantation during the events of Splatoon 1. They're attacked by Agent 3 and Captain Cuttlefish, but during the battle, something else attacks them and knocks them into the Deep Sea Metro. Oh god, could Calamari Inkantation have had the unintentional role in giving Tada Octolings as test subjects? As Octolings escaped, they could have been attacked and thrown into the Metro. It's an interesting thought, but anyway, Agent 8 lost their memories after waking up in the Metro. When we go to customize Agent 8, we get this character screen. Location of the Octo expansion character selector is... Where is this? As we can see, Agent 8 is submerged in green liquid, with green muck covering parts of their body. It looks a lot like the primordial ooze. As we escape to the surface, we'll have to go through the belly phase, stage 3. In Japanese, the stage translates to stomach sanitization site. This is where it all happens, the sanitization process. My theory is that the character selection screen is in this level, or at least near this location. I wouldn't say it's too much of a stretch to think that. If creating Octarian/Octoling zombies for tests happens here, then maybe participant preparation happens here as well. This liquid we're submerged in could be something like this. If you have a theory on where the character creator screen is, leave a comment. I'd be curious to know. The size of the Deep Sea Metro. This place is huge. There are a total of 85 stations, 4 of which have the Thangs, and 1 central station. We only get to play a small section of each station. There's so much more out there in the distance, even above us and even below us. So these places are all connected by the train lines, and if the level stages are all this big, then there has to be a fair bit of distance between each station, right? I wouldn't count the escape stages as the Deep Sea Metro because it isn't in the actual metro. It's more like in the Deep Sea. Speaking of, these 7 escape stages are enormous too. There's just so much space and there's stuff everywhere. But we also have to think about the sizing of everything around us. We have floating remnants of the human era all around the game. Compared to the Inklings and Octolings, these are big, and they aren't even that much shorter than the average human height. So why would all this floating stuff be huge? Maybe humans used to be enormous in the Splatoon universe, or maybe it's just some weird illusion, or maybe they're just big replicas. But basically, my point is that the Deep Sea Metro is either huge or it's huge. Now to finish off this video, we have the lockers at the secret final boss are agent numbers. At the central station, you'll notice lockers numbered 0 to 9 at one end of the platform. After completing all 80 tests, locker 8 opens up and then we can fight inner agent 3. So obviously, agent 8 is numbered 10,008, so it makes sense that we get the 8th locker. But why have so many lockers if we're the only creature participating in the tests? Well, just like the entry states, it could correlate with agent numbers. I do think that is an interesting thought, but I don't think that Tada was preparing for the new Squidbeak Splatoon. I'd say it's so we can remember what number our test subject number ends with. If we were number, say, 4385, our locker would be number 5. But maybe, just maybe, there was more than one participant active at once during some stage of testing. As an example, test subjects number 24, 25, and 26 could have participated together. Probably not doing the test together, but doing testing by themselves. So obviously, they can't just share a locker, and this could mean that up to 10 test subjects could participate at once. It's also good to point out that Agent 3 had a CQ-80 device, but it was an employee version, so they probably tried to figure out an escape route without heading to the quote-unquote promised land. That's all just speculation though, but what is insinuated is that a number correlates with a locker. And that's a wrap for this video. part 1 of the Splatoon Iceberg. Thanks for watching. Also thanks to everyone that helped me out with the making of this video. That includes my good friend Big Marsh for his help with reading entries. It's always a pleasure to have him on the channel. Check out the content on his channel if you can. Thanks to some other good friends, Harru and KyberQ, for all the amazing illustrated stills and animations I used in the video. As you've seen throughout this video and the Zelda Iceberg, these dudes are extremely talented. Many thanks to JG Ultra and my mate Guzmalord for help with some research, NW Player 123 for helping to explain our process on playable Octolings for Splatoon 1, and Caitlin Coy for explaining the process behind her lyrics and the languages found in Splatoon. All of their links will be in the description. In part 2, we'll be exploring the depths of layers 4 to 6. It's only going to get crazier from here, believe me, and I hope you'll stay tuned for the next video. Leave a like, comment, or subscribe if you feel like doing so. Until next time, stay fresh.
Don't shut me out, don't shut me out, don't shut me out. I know